If I had a nickel for every single time I got on a bike that had aftermarket levers and thought, wow, these things are really awesome, I should get a set of these for my bikes, I would have no nickels. There is no excuse for using aftermarket levers on any motorcycle ever, 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 ever. The only place they belong is in the garbage bucket. Yeah, so that video got a little bit more vitriolic than I anticipated, both from myself and from the comments section, which really seemed persecuted by the fact that I don't enjoy aftermarket levers. Now, I will admit to having overacted a little bit, but I mean, this is entertainment.
Allegedly.
And I will also, on a more serious note, cop to not explaining very well why I think aftermarket levers are indeed a waste of money. Now, no doubt you have seen some flashy title and thumbnail on this video designed to elicit an emotional response, because that's kind of the whole game on YouTube, but I would urge you guys to dial back the emotion just slightly. I really am trying to meet you guys halfway here, and in so doing, I went out and purchased a whole bunch of different levers and spent actually kind of a lot of money. So we've got 4 different lever options that I picked. Some are group favorites, some are my personal choice, and then of course we've got the stock levers and a few special guests. And we're gonna try to, as objectively as possible, see if these are indeed a waste of money or whether or not there is some value to adding an aftermarket lever to your motorcycle. So with that all being said, let's meet our contenders for today.
In the boring corner, they come free with every purchase of a new motorcycle. It's the polarizing, the slender and silver, the oft unappreciated stock levers.
Seriously though, these are the levers that a manufacturer decided pair best with your motorcycle, either because it's what came with the master cylinder they're using or because it was on the shelf in the factory. On the CBR here, the brake lever is adjustable and the clutch lever is not. They're silver and they work. Not much else to say. Then, straight from the rainforest, it is the no-name Amazon lever. You can get these prime overnighted in a lot of cases, and they usually run anywhere from $25 to $69. Nice. Sometimes they come with perches and a master cylinder. Most of the time they're 6-way adjustable, and almost always they're printed out of the same factory in China, no matter what label is on the box. Next up is the crowd favorite, and if I'm gonna put my cards on the table, these are my least favorite levers of the bunch. These are the ASV Shorties. I purchased these specifically because so many people kept calling out these levers in the Shorty configuration, and we're gonna see if they're worth the hype. They run $110 per lever, have short and long variations, blue, black, red, yellow, white, and orange colorways, and they claim to be unbreakable. I can't actually test that claim, but nothing is truly unbreakable. That being said, they are proudly made in the USA, which I can absolutely get behind. Fourth on the docket was my personal choice and something that I would consider putting on my motorcycle were I to choose an aftermarket lever. It's the Constructors Racing Group RC2. I've been using CRG products for years and I appreciate a quality part when I see one. The RC2 that we have here is $109.95, which is a fancy way of saying $110 per lever. You've got black, red, and yellow options, and of the 4, these are the best feeling in my hand. The ASVs feel heavy and utilitarian. The Amazon levers feel as cheap as they look, and the stock levers are nothing special. Now we are going to start out all of these tests by bringing in the one thing that you guys mentioned in the comments more so than anything else, and it's something I will freely admit that I neglected to mention in the video, and that is adjustability. A lot of levers do come non-adjustable on a lot of stock bikes. However, once you start getting into bikes like this, the 600 class, they do tend to have some adjustability somewhere on the bike. There were also a bunch of people who mentioned hand size. I do have big hands. I can palm a basketball, but some folks have little tiny baby hands and they need some help reaching the levers. So we're going to take a look at how adjustable all these levers really are. When it comes to the stock levers, you have adjustment on the brake lever only here on the CBR, and it's got a total range of 3/4 of an inch. Both the Amazon and CRG levers have 6-way adjustment, and both have a range of motion a hair over 6/10 of an inch. Lastly, the ASVs have the most granular adjustment, allowing for super precise lever position. They also have a comically large range of over 1 3/4 inches. You can push it further, but that really looks kinda silly, and the reach is very far. Maybe y'all were onto something with these ASVs. But before we move on, I want to mention that your levers are adjustable in more ways than you might think. If you loosen the clamp holding your master cylinder or clutch perch to the handlebar, you can raise and lower the lever so that it's in line with your arm. Doing this is going to make operating the levers a lot more comfortable, and it could potentially solve your reach issues. I would start here because this is free and takes a few minutes, and buying levers is expensive and takes like a week for them to get shipped in or whatever. Now we get to talk about some of the sillier reasons I hear people decide to put levers on their motorcycle, and the first one, weight savings. Weight is easy enough to test. Take one postage scale, add levers, record result, repeat. Now you may notice the lever that I'm holding here is different than the lever in the video. This is another 2 ounces heavier than the stock one, and I am going to show you the weigh-in so you know I'm not lying. The other one was not technically a stock lever, it was a stock replacement, and this is actually the brake lever off the 919, the exact same lever that came on the CBR 600 from this era. No matter what, the stock levers were the lightest option, which is really kind of funny when people say that these aftermarket levers with their fancy cutouts and holes drilled in them are lighter than the stock ones. They're just not. But while we're talking about weight, I need to bring up a fact here. I started 2024 at roughly 280 pounds. I am now 234 pounds. That's a drop of 46 pounds. You might save a couple of ounces on a lever. What's gonna give you the best power to weight ratio? Just a thought. Next up is feel. A lot of people claim that these stock levers can feel wooden or numb, and simply spending $110 on a lever is gonna massively improve how it feels and could potentially improve your braking performance. Feel is difficult to cover objectively because 2 people could use the same lever and come away with 2 different results. So I tried to get scientific about this by taking each lever, installing it on the clutch perch, and measuring the pull force at the very end of the lever just before the ball. I took 3 measurements for each lever and made sure that I didn't have any wild variations in the data. Then I averaged those weight figures out. Torque is a super basic force. It's force applied at the end of a lever. So the longer your lever is from the pivot point to the point where you apply the force, the more force you can apply. The inverse is also true. If you have a longer arm, you need to apply less force to achieve the same kind of turn. The distance from the pivot point to where I measured on the CRG levers was 6 3/4 inches. The Amazon levers were 6 1/8, the stock levers were 6 inches flat, and the ASVs were 5.5 inches. I've got the average pull forces right here on screen, and you can see that the ASV on average requires more force to actually pull the clutch cable in. So you're swapping out a lever that's more expensive and makes you have to work harder. That is why I think shorty levers are dumb. Are there some other points that maybe I'm not thinking of? Sure, you can let me know in the comments down below. But let's think about it like this. You're stuck in traffic on your motorcycle and you're constantly having to clutch in and clutch out. Would you rather be pulling 18 plus pounds or 15 plus pounds? Now I know you might be thinking that really doesn't sound like a whole lot, but sit in your driveway and do 50 reps, pulling the clutch in and out, in and out, in and out, and then tell me how your fingies feel if you're doing it on a short lever versus a long one. While we're talking about feel, something that is going to have a much bigger impact on the way that your clutch lever feels is changing the hardware, like your clutch pack, your clutch springs, or even just lubricating or replacing your clutch cable. Those are much more targeted ways to change stuff like the weight of the clutch pull or maybe the range and precision of your friction zone. I just recently replaced the clutch pack in this thing. Went from the 50,000 mile old stock clutch, which had the stock springs in there, and an old clutch cable with a brand new Barnett clutch. It's got carbon fiber friction plates as well as heavier duty springs, which have had a massive change of the feel at the lever. A new set of nice levers will cost you roughly $220. A new clutch will cost you $240, and only one of those things actually has a real-world performance difference on your motorcycle. But it's not just the clutch that can change the performance of your bike. This brings me to the holy grail of brake upgrades, the Brembo RCS 19 Master Cylinder. This is the go-to brake master cylinder for racetrack applications. Admittedly, while changing the master cylinder takes way more work than simply replacing a lever, if you don't like your brake feel, changing the hardware that's actually moving the fluid is going to improve your braking performance and feel way more than any lever could. To install the Brembo on here, all you need to do is take your old master cylinder off, assemble the new Brembo one, and then you have to put on the remote reservoir since this thing doesn't hold fluid otherwise. Finally, you'll have to bleed the system, but that's no big deal, especially on an old bike with no ABS.
Alright, let's test this sucker out. This thing is insanely powerful, guys. I don't know if you heard it, but my front tire actually started to skid there. It is so potent when attached to the Nissans on here that you really have to rewire how you brake. It is so much more progressive and so much more linear than the initial bite of the stock master cylinder. But once you get past that initial bite, you can stack up so much braking power that it actually is not terribly difficult to tuck the front end on a bike like this. Being able to come to a stop so quickly and just bleed off speed almost in the blink of an eye with the power of just one finger, it's intense. It's an amazing feeling. Let's give you guys an actual car in front of me to show you how quickly this thing bleeds speed. It's intense. It's intense. And again, I can hear that front tire just skid a little bit as I'm doing that. And I'm not squeezing the lever that hard. And I suppose in that sense, this master cylinder is not for everybody. But boy, oh boy, after riding around with this thing, I can't go back. I gotta have it on every single one of my bikes.
Now this master cylinder right here is going to cost you roughly $290, and this reservoir is going to cost another $50. This was actually provided to me by MotoFan over on the Discord server as part of the budget bike track build that I'm working on, which I am massively thankful for you, dude. This has been a huge improvement on this bike, and I'm very excited to play with it on a racetrack. But it is worth pointing out that you do not have to go this crazy on your bike. Magura has a lot of options from the like $200 to even like $140 range, and in fact I have one of their master cylinders on the KLR 650 because that original stock master sucks. But you can also improve your braking performance by changing your lines for braided steel ones or changing the pads for new bitier sintered pads from like a Cycle Gear, and they're like $30 a set or something like that. Any one of those is going to have more of an impact than a lever does, and when it comes to master cylinders, you are going to see some upgraded features on this too. This thing has a bleeder valve right here on the master cylinder, which means if you're bleeding it, you accidentally suck in a little bit of air out of here because you let the fluid get too low. You can bleed it out here and not have to work the air bubble all the way down to the calipers. This is pretty common on a lot of upmarket motorcycles, but it's trickling down, and you can even see it on cheap bikes like the NK that's right there. That thing's like $5,700, and it's got a bleeder valve on the master cylinder, which is super cool. But something you're gonna see here that you don't see on other master cylinders is the ability to change the lever ratio, which basically allows you to tune it for track and street performance separately. Now there's some stuff that I cannot cover in this video, obviously. Like, for example, maybe you want a red lever because it matches your motorcycle, or you saw somebody else on YouTube swear by the CRG or the ASV or a stock lever. At the end of the day, it is your call. I can't tell you how to spend your money, but I can say that I believe your money is better spent not buying aftermarket levers and actually buying performance upgrades for your motorcycle. Now here at the end of the video, I am going to say I'm leaving the RCS 19 master cylinder on here because it has been a massive improvement to the braking performance. I am also replacing the stock clutch lever with the CRG RC2 because admittedly, I do like having the option to adjust the levers. You guys are right there, and I was definitely wrong. I also enjoy how it feels paired with the new Barnett springs. It's a nice compromise between a heavier feel and a little bit more precision in the friction zone. But I think we can admit that a lot of the other reasons people often quote is just an excuse to spend $220 on some shiny aluminum that might look cool on your bike. And that personally is why I think aftermarket levers are kind of a scam. These things are crazy expensive, and all they do is have 6-way adjustability? Really? We're gonna spend $110 to get that? But that's enough for me here on this. I'm sure I've upset some folks. Let me know your thoughts on this. Did I give levers their just desserts today? Have I changed your mind? What levers do you use? I'm sure there's a bunch of butthurt ASV people down there. But honestly, guys, I've had these on the bike. I rode them for like a week on this bike, and I still don't get why people are so taken aback by these. They're just levers. I don't know. They're black and they say ASV and they claim to be unbreakable. I don't get the point. It's just flashy marketing. Whatever. Anyway, let me know your thoughts down below. I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.